And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. And welcome to another edition of GMAT Club's YouTube Debriefs. My name is Evan. For those of you who don't know me by that name, I'll be really pissed if some of you don't. You hopefully know me by my form name, Nightblade354. And by the way, the person who is, I'm pulling the other direction here, the person who's sitting next to me here, who I am interviewing, does know me by both names. So I'm very happy to hear that. Folks, this session is going to be all about Aditya's, shoot, I forgot how to pronounce your name. How do you pronounce it?
Perfect. Absolutely correct. Aditya.
Aditya's process and how he scored his score and how he was able to improve. Now, as many of you know, these sessions are agenda free, meaning not only is he not being paid or compensated for this, neither am I for that matter. And everything that is said here should be considered completely unbiased. This is for your benefit, not mine. I'm just here for the views, guys. I'm here because I'm a narcissist and I love the attention. But enough about me. Aditya, it is up to you, buddy. Why don't you give an intro of who you are and why you're here, and we can dive into all the fun questions we have for you here today.
Thanks a lot, Evan. Hi, everyone. I'm Aditya. I am a corporate lawyer by profession. I've been working as a lawyer for the last 8 years now, so that's a lot of work experience. Decided I wanted to try something different, and that's when I figured that I should give the GMAT. Maybe, beyond the law, there is a calling, so why not at least give the exam and then see how things pan out. So that's how I stumbled onto GMAT. That's how I stumbled onto GMAT Club. And I think as we go on discussing how I went through the entire process, I think you'll start to figure out what is it that I did and how I did it. And maybe some of you can get some useful tidbits of information from that.
Oh, we're looking forward to it. And again, for those of you who are watching this and are like, wow, 2 minutes in, he's already stumbling. He doesn't know names. As I say in most of my videos, I cannot pronounce names to save my life. If we ever get a Joe Smith on here, I'm going to light off fireworks because I'm going to be able to know that name like the back of my hand. But because I'm a semi-ignorant American and can only announce or, I guess, pronounce European-based names, this is what we get. We get me stumbling over names. So if any of you who have 4 names want to post questions in the chat, please do. Watch me stumble over them and have a laugh or two. Questions will be answered at the end. So if you do have a question for our lawyer friend here, drop them in the chat and I will try and get to them if I do not answer them during this session. And for those of you keeping score, yes, last week was a doctor. This week is a lawyer. Aditya, really fast. Are you single?
Let's just... Okay, I'm not. Let's
the fact
just go
that you
ahead.
even hesitated. I'm gonna say that may lead you into the doghouse, and he or she, not to assume preferences here, but they're either gonna be really pissed that you even hesitated, or maybe just maybe you're trying to come up with a white lie here, folks. Let's assume he's single. So if any women are watching this and you want a nice lawyer in your life who's going to business school, oh shoot, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. This is your guy. But with that said,
lawyers speak. I can neither confirm nor deny that statement.
Yeah, well, I'll take you to court. I'll subpoena you. We'll get that answer. But with that said, we can jump in here. And the first question, you sort of touched on it, but I want to make sure that we really make it clear for everybody. What made you decide to take the GMAT, and what was the first thing you decided to do after you jumped in and said, you know what, this is it. I'm gonna make the commitment to business schools. I'm making a commitment to this test.
Right. So back when I was working in a corporate law firm, we used to do a lot of transactions. We used to do a lot of private equity deals, mergers and acquisitions. And we used to assist our clients in a lot of legal work, helping them finalize the transaction documents, structure the transactions, the usual. At some point, I would say somewhere around the end of 2020, I started realizing that there is a lot more to a transaction than just the legal documentation that we lawyers usually do. So that's when I started looking into the business side of it, the financial side of it, the operational side of it. And that sort of got my mind ticking that there might just be a world beyond the 4 walls of my law firm. And I thought maybe that's something that I can explore. At the same time, I finished a course on accounting and financial statement analysis, something that corporate lawyers usually do not have focused experience in. And I think that sort of added to my arsenal of skills that I could use to help my clients get the best deal possible. Now, these two factors happened very close to each other, and that's when my mind started clicking and whirring to start to think about, maybe there might be something more to this than just the kind of work that I'm doing. So why not give it a shot? At that time, I was also contemplating starting my own independent practice. So somewhere around August 2021, I said, let's take the plunge. Let's start my own independent practice. So I started advising clients on my own, started reaching out to people, helping them on a lot of stuff. And because I became an independent practitioner, I could also then start helping startups and founders to try and sort of help them strategize a lot of business related aspects, which goes probably beyond the law, because I was very interested in how businesses work. And that's when I thought, why not try to give this monster called GMAT a try? Like, everyone who wants to go to business school has or should give this. So I thought, okay, let's look at what this is all about. So I picked up, obviously, the Bible, the OG, figured that I should at least figure out what all of this is, or what the brouhaha is all about. And I started going through it, figured that it's been almost 15 years since I last gave a competitive exam. So, I might just have to start from scratch. And us lawyers, we're not usually the more quant focused guys. We love our verbal. So the moment I saw a sentence correction or critical reasoning, I'm like, yep, this is up my alley. Quant, not at all. Not at all. But I started going through the OG, and I started doing a very randomized diagnostic, if I can even call it that, by just picking up questions from the first parts and just getting through them. And I felt, okay, this isn't that difficult. What's the big deal? And I started going through them, and I felt, okay, I'm feeling quite confident, but this seems too easy, because I hadn't reached the later portion of the OG where your usual 700 plus questions are. I didn't know that. Someone introduced me to this wonderful website called GMAT Club. And that's when I started reading all about it, what this GMAT is, what you need to do to actually tame this beast. And it's not easy. There is a lot more to GMAT than just, GMAT is, I would say that it's probably it tests you in ways I think no other exam does. And I had no idea about it. So once I got onto the platform, I'm like, okay, I need some assistance. So that's when I think around September, October, November, I started shopping for good courses that could help me structure my approach, because till that time, about a few months in, I was all over the place. I was just randomly picking up questions, randomly looking at solutions. And at some points, I realized I'm making the same kind of mistake. I am not doing this in a focused manner. And the lawyer in me kept on shouting that this is not how you approach a problem. You first identify the scope of the problem, you figure out a process to tackle the problem, and then you go on solving it in a systematic manner. What I was doing is I was just randomly picking up stuff and just solving it and feeling good about myself. So that's when I started shopping for good courses. And again, GMAT Club came to my aid. Went through a few trials, and then picked up a really good test prep by GMAT Wiz. Took their 6-month course, very good course. I won't go too much into detail. I mean, I'll put a detailed debrief about GMAT Wiz later on. But it really helped me focus my attention on how to go about building my foundation. So it has a very I would say, focused approach on first building your concepts and then expanding on those concepts. So I did that for a few months. And I also, in parallel, started focusing on how to tackle these questions, that there's an approach to these questions. You can't just learn the concept. You also have to start learning how to answer these questions within the time frame. Because earlier I was doing questions, no time, no timer. And then I started realizing, because all your in-chapter tests, some of them were timed. And sometimes I would just like, who cares about the time? biggest mistake. Once you have your concepts set, so this is what worked for me. I know it might not work for others, but it worked for me. Once you have your concepts set of, let's say, one particular topic, let's take quadrilaterals, for example, then you start going through the questions, you start solidifying those concepts, and then you start tackling questions regarding that concept, so that at least that entire chapter is more or less sorted for that point of time. I'm not saying that it's done, at least it wasn't done for me. So I started focusing a lot more on that. So I think towards the end of 2021, this is beginning 2022, I started then giving the mocks because my course prep was done and I wasn't doing too well. I was fumbling about. My time was completely atrocious because that was the first time that I was doing a full mock. Earlier, I just used to do 5 questions, 10 questions, 5 questions, 10 questions. The first time I did a full quant 31 question mock or a full verbal 36 question mock, tanked. I think I got a 640 on the GMAT Viz mock. I hadn't touched the GMAT prep mocks yet because I was saving them for just before the exam. I was a little dejected, but then I thought, okay, let's try and understand what the problem is. And what I found was that I was not focusing on why I'm getting the questions wrong. And that's where the whole concept of an error log started to become really important. I had read about the error logs in the beginning, but me being me, I just wanted to get through the entire course first before I started thinking about these additional points, which, to be honest, are not additional. They are, in fact, necessary complements to the way you have to, the way ideally you should go on with your course. So that's when the error log started pointing me to places where it said that, sometimes your concepts are good, but you're not focusing on each question with the right approach. So I read up a few articles on GMAT Club, and that's where I also started watching a lot of YouTube videos by, you have the GMAT legend, GMAT Ninja. There were a lot of great articles on GMAT Club, a lot of great explanations to OG questions. Some of them were Bunwell, Karishma. I can go on and on. My debrief has a lot of these names, and every one of those explanations helped me understand.
That's okay.
I'll definitely add that. I must add that. So yeah, I think my approach was haphazard even after the course. I would say that, but somewhere around March, it started becoming a bit more focused and a bit more concentrated. I also then started doing the GMAT club test to put myself in difficult situations, and boy, were those questions difficult. If anyone wants to challenge themselves, please. I got the GMAT club test for free, so that's a great thing. I just paid for my course for GMAT Viz, and I got 3 months of GMAT club test for free. So if anyone wants to buy a course, just buy them through GMAT Club. You get them for cheap. So, and you get the club test for free. So that really
if
pushed
I may
me.
interject very quickly there, I will say our quant cats, computer adaptive tests, those mocks are a little bit more challenging than the GMAT. Bunel writes them, and they are, in my view, very high quality. Our verbal is not. So use the quant to help you as much as possible. Avoid avoid verbal like the plague, at least for now. We still need to correct them. We still need to update them. So just so we're clear.
Absolutely. To be honest, my main focus for doing the GMAT Club GMAT Club tests primarily was the quant, because quant was not my strength area, and not just because I wanted to get better at quant, but also I wanted to be under some amount of pressure, because I felt that I was taking it too easy. I really felt that I should be taking it a bit more seriously. So I thought I needed that additional pressure of, okay, you're getting a Q25 or Q30. And that's exactly what happened. My first mock, my first GMAT Club quant cat was, I think, Q30 or Q35, and which was atrocious for me because I was targeting something a little higher. But that sort of got me on the track for looking at error logs, because GMAT Club Test also has a very robust error log inbuilt. So I started understanding, okay, why am I getting this wrong? Is this a conceptual problem? Is this a calculation problem? So that's the entire journey from March till May when I gave my first exam. And I was feeling quite confident. So just before, I think, the beginning of May, about 3 weeks before my exam, I gave my GMAT prep the first mock, and I got a decent enough score. I got a 730. And the next one that I gave somewhere around a week before my final exam, I got a 750. So I was feeling relatively confident. Decent quant verbal mix. At that time, till that time, just to recap, all I had done was OG questions, which were part of the GMAT Wiz portal, which again was a great thing because that had an inbuilt set where you could just you need to have the questions and all the answers were inbuilt into the system itself. So the OG questions, GMAT Wiz questions, and I would say about 35% of the GMAT club test quant cats. I didn't do verbal till that time. That's all I did, plus GMAT club as well. Right, so I was feeling very confident, 750 as a large GMAT prep, and I heard that your final scores are plus minus 50, 20. I felt fine, 730 is a very good score. Let's go for it. Enter the day of the test. I'm very well rested. So one thing about me, I take a lot of care about my sleep, my hydration, my diet, my exercise. So for me, all of those factors, and there's one factor that I missed out, which is pretty much what I'm going to allude to a little bit later. So all of these factors were pretty much sorted. I was well rested. I was relaxed. On the day of the test, obviously I had a little bit of anxiety, but that was pretty normal. I think a little anxiety is good. Please don't think that anxiety is bad. A little bit of test anxiety actually helps you focus. At least it helps me. So I enter the exam center. Everything goes well. And I'm giving these Stedler pens to write on the laminated sheets. Now, for anyone who still hasn't read about how the GMAT happens in a center, you don't use pen and paper. You use a different kind of pen, and you work on a longer than A4 size laminated sheet. It's 8 pages, so 16 sides. So there's sufficient space, but it writes a bit differently than your normal pen on paper. So I tried it out. I tested it before they gave me the booklet and the pens, and I felt, okay, these 2 pens work. Let's go inside. Went through the entire rule process, and I started my test. And I started with verbal because I thought I'm very confident with verbal. Let's get that out of the way so that when we're a little relaxed for quant. I started the test and I started making notes on the laminated sheet. No ink. I was scribbling fast. Nothing. There was no ink at all. It was completely blank. And I panicked at that point because I thought, I just checked this pen. It was working fine. Why is it not working? I just left it, took the other pen because we got 2 pens. So the other one didn't work. Raised my hand. Invigilator came in fast, had a bunch of pens in her hand. For a good 45 seconds to a minute, I was just trying to scribble the pens and there was absolutely no ink and I was getting very frustrated. I don't know what triggered this different reaction, but then when I slowly wrote, instead of scribbling fast, I just put the pen tip on the paper and just wrote for half a second and then started writing. The ink finally started flow. And that's when I realized you just need to give it a few seconds for the ink to start flowing through the pen and onto the paper. And that's when I started getting the hang of how to use it. But by that time, I think it was almost a minute and a half into the first question and I hadn't even read it. And that sort of spiraled me out of control because for me, I always had some amount of problems with timing because I always used to finish the exams or both sets rather, both quant and verbal, just a few seconds before the timer ran out. So for me, timing was very crucial because somehow till that time, I hadn't been able to control my desire to complete a question. I just could not leave a question unanswered or unsolved. It just wasn't normal for me. And I thought, I'll manage through this. But that 1.5 or 1 minute, 15 seconds tanked my entire verbal section. And that unfortunately carried over to the quant section as well. So at the end, I felt extremely dejected because I knew I could answer those questions. But it was just that I was so anxious about the time that I just could not focus on those questions. and I got a 700 at the end of it. So, I mean, I'll stop there because I've been going on and on. If there's anything you want to ask, and then I'll start the next step.
Yeah, so I do want to pull us back, and I sort of want to talk about a couple of things, and then we can dive into this first exam a little bit more and the anxiety around it. My first question is what was the official start date? And by the way, we're gonna go way back here, and I promise not to completely reset. You were just going. I wanted to let you run. You had momentum. When was the official date when you first picked up a book and said, okay, I'm going to start studying for the GMAT?
I would say this was, so I picked up the OG way back in 2019, but that was just to ruffle through it. I would say probably the first time I actually picked the book up for the purpose of giving the exam was August 2021.
Okay, August 2021, you said you took your first test in March, or was it May?
May 2022.
Okay, so August to May, let's see. How good am I at
9 months
here? Yeah, 9 months. hey, I'm not a quant expert. That's Bunel. I'm
neither am I.
By the way, and you mentioned at the beginning how this test is unbearable and is just a nightmare to deal with. It is, even for experts, it's a nightmare. Folks, they say lawyers don't have souls. I'd argue GMAT writers don't have souls either. So we're playing in the same ballpark here. Okay, so you've 9 months. What was your goal? A 700? What was your initial goal, and what was the time period you hoped to get it in? Were you hoping to get like a 750 in 3 months, or were you hoping to get a 700 within 9 months? What was your thought process?
I hadn't really put a timeline to it because at that time I was purely giving the exam just to get a score. I did not have, at that time, I did not have a timeline in mind. But for me, tentatively, I thought at least by the beginning of 2022 or somewhere in the first quarter of 2022, I should tentatively target giving the exam. It got delayed because of a few technical issues. For example, one issue was my passport had expired and I could not give the exam without a valid passport. So that sort of added, I would say, about 3 weeks to.
I love it.
It added. It added 3 weeks.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, it added 3 weeks to my prep time. But yeah, I did not have a time. I did not have a timeline for giving it. But yes, in terms of score, I definitely had a 700 plus in mind. Because for me, yeah, I definitely had a 700 plus in mind.
Shoot, I strained my forearms doing that. Ow. Also, I was hitting my chest. I realized I hit it a little too hard there. I think I heard an echo.
Passionate. Passionate.
For those who claim I don't have a heart, like you may be right. It may be an echo chamber in there. Ow. A new Priya. I hate names. Yes, apparently he is single. So yes, reach out. Please reach out. We'll post his information so you can stalk him. By the way, I assume these are your friends who are messaging here saying you're such a hard worker and he's a great guy. What good friends? For those of you watching who are his friend, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and I promise I want to actually hear from you. So if you want to join, I'll send you guys a link so you can come on here and explain all the wonderful ways that Aditya studied and impacted your lives. But until we get to that point, so we have a rough time frame. We have a rough score estimate. You said you used GMAT Club, which I love. Now, again, completely unbiased here, but it may be the best website in the world. You use GMAT Whiz, and then you used OG, the books.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me ask, were you using for quant any unofficial questions, or were you sticking to official, and same with verbal? Were you sticking to only the official ones, or were you sprinkling in some non-official ones?
Yes, I was sprinkling in a lot of non-official ones. Basically,
quant,
whatever. Both. Yeah. So again, I realized that. So I made a lot of mistakes. And so if you want the TLDR version, quant, yes, you can feel free to, expand your horizon, try things out. Verbal, do not go beyond the OG, if at all. And I know, Evan, you also like this, especially because you've given the LSATs. If at all you want to go beyond the OG, LSAT is the only place to go. But for sentence correction, there's actually nowhere else to go. There's no need to go anywhere else. OG is your guide.
Yes, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. Unofficial, you can get away with quant. It's almost impossible to screw up a quant question. It is very easy and borderline impossible. It's very easy to get verbal questions wrong if you're using the unofficial ones. It's borderline impossible to get them right if you're a test prep company trying to write them. So
absolutely
stick to LSAT, stick to OG for verbal. Quant, go wherever the wind blows you. Who cares? But I now want to talk about so you're a lawyer. Obviously, you're a very busy man. You're suing people. You're stealing people's lives. You're wrecking everything and everyone around you. You're a soul-sucking menace. You're the shadow of all your friends. We get it. You're a jackal, a hyena. I could go on and on with all of these adjectives. But you are, as I said, a busy man. How were you able to study? Was it in the mornings? Was it in the afternoons? Was it during your lunch break? Was it at night? And then what was your quant verbal breakdown? What were you focusing on most during that time?
So because I started studying at the same time I started my independent practice, I had control over how I spaced out my work. So the way I used to do my work was I used to study first thing in the morning. Then I used to space out my work in between. And then towards the end, I would say in the evening or late at night, I would just go back to what I had studied, especially if I had done some questions that day. And then just assess how I approach those questions. Is there something that I could have done quicker? And that's when I used to go to GMAT Club to look at all the explanations.
Yeah.
So morning used to be all theory and then practice in terms of application of the theory to the questions. And then in the evening, it used to be just get a sense of, okay, what actually happened? Just deep dive into each question and just try and figure out, because that's when your mind's not able to think new, but at least it's able to analyze what actually happened. And split used to be, I would say, one day each. Like one day would be quant, the next day would be verbal, and then the next day would be quant and verbal, maybe a couple of days of quant if it's a difficult chapter. So not really a set pattern, but it was usually interspersed with each other. It wasn't quant throughout and verbal throughout.
I am so happy that you took time to answer questions or review, and then later in the day, a day later, you would actually go back and review and understand each question. Folks, if you're watching this, I understand a lot of you are looking for anxiety management, and we will get there, I promise. We're going to hear about it in a few minutes, at least for the first test, and then how we moved on to the second. If there's one other thing you take from this, it's that you cannot burn and waste questions. When you take them, you need to be able to understand why each answer choice is right and why each answer choice is wrong. And if you don't, you've wasted the question. And you need to be able to do it efficiently and effectively and know it like the back of your hand. Don't skip over that part, please. But
words of wisdom.
So tell me, how many questions were you doing each day, give or take? So you were doing quant verbal. I actually like that. I know some people like to mix it up, quant and verbal each day, but doing it every other day, I actually feel is a better mix. How many questions were you doing each day, give or take?
Right. Because I was following the course, whatever the course threw up at that time, like in chapter tests or after chapter quizzes, those used to be in the vicinity of about 15 to 25 per chapter. Plus, there were some additional questions that I would probably do from the OG. So if, let's say, again, taking quadrilaterals as an example, the course had about 20 to 25 questions inbuilt into the course structure. And then for quadrilaterals, I would then go to the OG to see, okay, there are about 20, 25 questions. Then I would do about 5 or 10 of them on that day. Then the next day I would do the other 15 and then, something else. So I would say somewhere in the ballpark of 25 to 30, 35 questions a day. It doesn't sound like a lot, but because I used to review each question in depth at the end of the day, or maybe spilling over to the next day, it made sense to focus on just a few questions instead of going for a large volume. I made that mistake in the first part. I definitely made that mistake when I was starting out. But when I started reading a bit more about how do you actually approach it, this is much later. This was around January, where I was already 3 or 4 months into the course. That's when I started adapting to, okay, that structure isn't going to work. This structure is better. And that's when I actually started seeing improvements in my mock scores in GMAT quiz. So it's crucial, like you rightly said, it's very crucial that you understand what went wrong. Because if you don't do that, that answering a question correctly or incorrectly is redundant. It doesn't make any difference whether you did it or you didn't do it.
I'm such a proud father right now. I really am. So you were beholden to GMAT was in the curriculum. And by the way, if you figured out that it worked, what if I actually forgot to ask this? Did you take a practice test to start to get sort of a baseline for where you were, or what? So after studying for a couple of weeks, maybe months, what was your initial mock score that you got?
Yeah, horrible. I think I have it here. Yeah, first one was a fluke 700 because I really didn't know how I got there.
Okay, what was a real
It was
one?
actually, yeah, the real one was 640.
Okay.
Then another was 640. Then another was 680. That's when I started improving, like legitimately improving. These weren't random scores. And then it ended with a 720. And these were on the test prep company. So not bad, but obviously these were just testing me to see if I could handle that pressure of doing quant and verbal together in that 1.5 or 120 minutes odd. So
Right.
that was primarily for the practice, for the timing, and just to see if I can get the questions right. And I was making a mistake. I was missing questions. I was overshooting the time. So I started realizing that, I'm using these practice tests not just for this concept, but also for the test prep and test anxiety and all of that.
Right. And that's when you started seeing some progress, is when you realized, okay, I need to review. I need to focus on timing as well.
Yes.
I need to focus on these key components. By the way, to this guy, again, I'm not going to pronounce your name because I'm already a clown here. 10 days to GMAT, and today I discovered GMAT Club. My current score is 700. Could have jumped 780 easily. Yeah, that's the magic of GMAT Club, baby. That's why you join these websites. That's why you join our completely free and open website. Again, I'm not biased in any way, shape, or form, just because I'm wearing the shirt. No, again, I have no agenda. I promise. I'm here to I'm a slave to the truth. I'm here to just tell everybody what it is. For example, there's no mirror in Aditya's house, or at least in this room, because when he stares in it, there's no reflection. Lawyers just, again, they'll never see it. So we've established all of the sources you've used. We've established how long you're studying each day. Before we now get back to the anxiety of test one, how many mock tests were you doing, let's say, in a given month? What was the frequency of you using practice tests to measure your score?
So, yeah, in terms of mock tests, I would take one every 15 to 25 days, give or take. There was
Okay.
no method to the madness. Once I had finished
Madness
my
to the
course,
method.
could be. So yeah, 15 to 25 days, because after I give the test, I would usually then go to GMAT Club, do a few quant cats, just to get into the habit of doing those really, really difficult questions that irked the living bejesus out of me, because the questions, sometimes the answers were so simple. Like Buñuel has this insane ability to give an answer to the most obvious question in the easiest way possible, that you just keep on thinking for 5 minutes, how did I miss this? And then you see about 75% other people also miss this. So you're like, okay, I'm not the only one. So
You
I
can't
just used
compare
to,
yourself to Buñuel. I can't compare
oh, of
myself
course,
to
no
Buñuel.
one can. No one.
GMAT Ninja can't compare himself to Buñuel. I mean, we're now talking about literally the world's leading quant expert. There's nobody on earth who compares to the AI of GMAT Club. I'm sorry, it is it is what it is. So don't, for everyone watching, like, don't hold yourself to GMAT Ninja standard. Don't hold yourself to Bunel standard. Don't, like, that's a self-defeating prophecy. Don't do it.
Yeah. So exactly. But I did that just to challenge myself for a difficult situation. Again, subconsciously, I was trying to put myself in difficult situations. The only point was I wasn't making the surrounding difficult. I was just making the exam difficult. And that's when we come to the later aspect. I realized that maybe that's another aspect I could have thought about. So yes, at that time, pretty much those were my only things, and 20-25 days for each mock. I left the GMAT prep, like I said, towards the end of just a month before my final exam, because I wanted to save them. I wanted to have an absolutely clear idea of where I stood. And aside from the 2 GMAT preps, the 6 GMAT Viz mocks, and just the random quant cats and some verbal cats on GMAT Club, no other exams till that time.
And I just want to reiterate to folks, you can use alternative mocks outside the official ones from GMAC. Just you have to take the results with a grain of salt. I also want to reiterate that mocks should be used for 2 things: to build your stamina and to help you understand where you sit when it comes to your goal and your score. You cannot ace this exam by simply taking mock tests. That is, again, a self-fulfilling, self-defeating prophecy. So don't do that either. But Aditya, so now we've prepped for 9 months, given all these mock tests. You get to the exam, and boy, do you hit a speed bump. You hit something that throws you off. Your timing is off. Your mind is thrown into complete disarray here. You get frustrated. You're pissed off. You wander. You get a 700. Let me ask, what score was more disappointing, the quant or the verbal?
Both, because
Okay,
I
so it was both.
felt, yeah. So it was a Q48 V39.
Which, by the way, is an incredible score. For everyone watching this, I mean, if you get a 700, you should be very happy. That is a hard score to get.
I heard that from a lot of people. I did. And I'm not trying to be modest here at all. But because I knew that my mistakes were not conceptual, I knew that I was tripped up by something beyond the test that should not have happened. Had I been beaten conceptually, I would have been, yes, this is what it is, I'll accept it. But because I knew that, okay, I am much better than this, I felt that this is not, and anyway, I would very honestly say right now, this is something which I've heard a lot of people say, and I completely echo that. Your GMAT score is not representative of who you are. Your GMAT score does not tell you how good or how not good you are. It is just a function of what happens on that day. And sometimes you just cannot control it. You have no control over all of that. So please do not feel, please do not feel that me saying that 700 did not work for me means that 700 is a bad score. Evan's completely correct.
As always.
It's a very good score, as always. So yeah, pretty much.
And by the way, for everyone watching, any standardized test is going to be a roll of the dice. There are going to be times where you take a test and it lines up with your strengths and you knock it out of the park. There are going to be times where it hits on all your weak areas and you're sitting there, saying a lot of things that would make a lot of people blush. It just happens. So taking more than one test is not a bad way to go. I took the LSAT multiple times. So, even the smartest of people have to take these tests multiple times. It is what it is. But we've failed. Well, we've failed, at least in your view. You've done incredibly well, but you got 700. Below expectations. It was your anxiety. How did you feel leaving the test center? What was the first thing going through your mind?
I can definitely do better. The moment the blue screen flashed Q48, V39, I don't even remember the IR score. I felt, okay, this is definitely crackable. And that's the time when I felt, okay, this is not the Leviathan monster. this is a beast that you can actually tame. What tripped you up was something outside of the exam. And as if you can control that, you are definitely in a position to tame this beast because it is pure logic. Again, hundreds of people would have said this before me, and hundreds would say it after me. The GMAT is not a math exam, it is not a grammar exam, it is a test of logic and it is a test of endurance because it is a long exam. And if you have the endurance and the resilience to go through all the aspects of the preparation to actually sitting there for over 3 hours and giving the exam, that's what it tests, to test you in a difficult situation. So I felt, yes, I actually can do it. So for
So,
3 hours.
so you weren't self-defeating where you're like, oh my God, this is the end of the world. You sat there and you said, I'm going to get this. I'm going to go at it. I'm going to kill it. By the way, you mentioned Leviathan. Yeah. Funny enough, Moby Dick.
Moby Dick.
The monomaniacal drive of a madman named Captain Ahab who wants to kill the great white whale. So as soon as you said Leviathan and drive, I'm like, I've got it. I might as well show it.
Exactly. So the GMAT exam was what I thought a Leviathan, but it actually is, okay, it is a lion. It is definitely dangerous, but you can definitely tame it. So,
but so is Moby Dick. The sperm whale is a dangerous whale.
So yeah, but I did feel bad, or rather, I did feel dejected for a good 3 hours. But I had friends and family to perk me up from all of that situation. And after those 3 hours, I was like, okay, let's give this another shot. Next day, back to square one, figuring things out.
Well, so now you've hit on another really great point. Support network. You've had your friends in here complimenting you, saying how hard of a worker you are and that you can now have a life again. You said they were instrumental in getting you sort of back up on that horse. And I want to hear your experiences with it. But folks, those of you watching, a support network is crucial. I cannot hammer enough how important a support network is. Going at this alone can be a really daunting task. It can be alone. You can feel like there's no one to turn to. You can't vent your stresses and your anger. You can't celebrate the victories. It's not fun to do that. Having a support network, having people there to prop you up when you're down and have you celebrate with you when you're elated and you win is invaluable. But Aditya, tell me about your experience with that network.
Absolutely. I think friends and family, at least I'm very, very privileged to have a good supportive network of friends and an extremely supportive family. In fact, I mean, when I touch upon it, the whole reason why or one of the major reasons why I moved up in my score, and the reason how I actually ended up thinking about things like mindfulness, meditation, and grounding techniques was because my sister, who's a practicing psychologist, told me about these different techniques which can control anxiety. And because I have that relationship with my friends who were very supportive about telling me that this is not the end of the world and you definitely have it within you, I was filled with a lot of confidence that this is, again, like I said, it's a tameable exam. And it's not the end of the world, even if you didn't get a good score on the first try. There's always another try, as long as you know what went wrong. And I was, again, very lucky to have the awareness to realize that I know where I messed up and I know how to solve that now. Because now I have the tools where my friends and family have actually helped me identify those tools and help me sharpen those tools. I think I'll be better prepared the next time.
Wow, so a therapist and a lawyer in the family. Well, that is a well-accomplished family right there. And by the way, for anyone thinking, well, of course he had help. His sister's a therapist. She could literally give him all the tools to overcome anxiety and depression. A normal family member or friend can do the same thing. Believe me.
Of course.
So you kind of screwed me there by saying, no, someone's trained in the mental arts. All right, but either way, your sister got you back up on that horse. And by the way, folks, we will get to your questions in a little bit. I promise. I know you guys have been asking some really good ones. I promise to get to them. All right, so now tell me. It's May. You've spoken with family and friends. You're getting your engine revved up again. when did you take your second exam? How long after your first exam was it?
Right. So my first exam was the last week of May,
Okay.
and then my second exam was the second week of August. I would say 10th or 11th. I'm not too sure.
Okay. So
Yeah,
May to June, June to July, July to August. So we're looking at 2.5 months, right?
2.5 months. Yes.
Okay. So we're talking 10 weeks here.
Right.
What did you do in those 10 weeks that differed from your first time around? Were the materials any different? And then obviously we're going to talk about your anxiety management, which is why most of you are here. But let's first talk about sort of the more concrete reasons and rationales. Did the studying change, or was it strictly a matter of test management and anxiety?
Exactly. I think that's exactly what I thought is I needed to do. So two things. Because I also realized some small gaps in some aspects of my conceptual knowledge on both verbal and quant, which I thought, it's if I have this time, let's sharpen those a bit more. Why be happy with just looking at a non GMAT related aspect to improving my score? Let's look at what I can do more with the conceptual knowledge of what I have already done. So yes, I added some materials. I won't say changed. I got the Manhattan series. All the quant and all the verbal. I also got the Kaplan book because it was someone gave it to me at a very reasonable. Sorry.
Wait, I heard Manhattan GMAT, love. What was the one before that?
So Manhattan GMAT and then Kaplan.
Oh,
And I'll tell
Kaplan.
you
Jesus.
why I got Kaplan.
Stay away from Kaplan. What were you doing?
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because Kaplan gave the six cats with that book. And I know what I might say right now might be a bit controversial, but hear me out.
No,
I
no,
use
no.
yeah.
Avoid Kaplan like the plague. For anyone watching this, stay away. See, by the way, I think Kaplan's a sponsor of GMAT Club. I'm not afraid to bash our sponsors. Like, stay away from Kaplan. But fine. Try and lawyer out why you used Kaplan. Go ahead.
So the reason I got Kaplan was not the content. The reason I got Kaplan was the six cats that came with Kaplan because Manhattan had stopped giving the six cats.
But their
And I
cats
had
use their questions, and their questions suck.
I know. And I was only doing it for having. So, okay, how should I put this? The Kaplan UI, in my view, is probably the closest to the actual GMAT UI. And the reason why I wanted to use Kaplan primarily was to get my head in the zone as if I am in the exam center. And I actually replicated exam center conditions by wearing a mask and giving the exam, which, by the way, anyone who's doing that in an area where COVID restrictions are still valid, please give your practice exams wearing a face mask to get used to actually doing it when you're at the center. Keeping that aside, yes, I did not primarily do it for the question quality. Not as much because of that, but I wanted to get myself into the zone of thinking and visualizing that I am giving an actual GMAT exam. But my main questions still were OG, and this time I got the OG advanced, which was nothing but I figured out that it's just a collection of the most difficult OG questions from both quant and verbal, and some of them I'm like, okay, I've already done this. But at the same time, I had a lot of questions from some of the earlier versions and some of the newer versions as well. And I sort of started making an error log just for the advanced questions, and that really helped me. But one material which really opened my eyes to how to approach questions, not the question bank itself, was the Power Score CR Bible and the Power Score RC Bible. For anyone who wants to understand, in my view, what is the most logical approach to both RC and CR, please, 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 I kid you not, the most important resource that you can get is the Power Score RC Bible and the Power Score CR Bible, because their approach to explaining how do you tackle these different kinds of questions is, in my mind as a lawyer, it was so methodical, it was so systematic. I fell in love with it the moment I started reading it, and that became my focus point for approaching CR and RC questions. While obviously I did some of the practice questions there, my main focus was still the OG questions and the advanced OG questions. I still felt that the way you approach those questions, the way Power Score describes it, is absolutely phenomenal. So that really worked for me.
And folks, for those watching, I just posted my CR guide that I wrote. I
Okay.
cannot tell you how invaluable Power Score's critical reasoning book is. It is, in my view, one of the singularly most valuable pieces of study material that you can purchase. My guide includes a summary of it, so you don't need to purchase it if you don't want to, but it is 100% correct. You use that book if you can find it.
Yes, and I did not know about the book till I was just scouring through a bookstore and I saw a secondhand version of it. And I was like, okay, I've heard about this. Flipped through a few pages, instantly fell in love, got it back, and then just cover to cover finished it. And then this thing that I wanted to test was, okay, now does my approach to the questions change? And it actually did. I went back to my error log, focused on the questions that I got right but I took longer time, or focused on the questions that I got wrong. It worked like magic. I was solving these questions far quicker because I had a concept in mind. I knew how to tackle an assumption question. I knew how to tackle a weakened question. The concept was so clear and so methodical. It's an invaluable resource for anyone looking to basically to do well in verbal, which I would say is very, very important. Like, I still messed up my quant score in my second test, but verbal really got me up.
By the way, folks, and I couldn't agree with you more, I am posting the StreamYard link, which is how we're broadcasting. If any of you, because we are probably in the next 8 to 10 minutes going to get to the audience questions, if any of you would like to come on our stream and go live with us and ask your question live, this is the way you do it. Click on that link. It'll bring you into the backstage. And when you are called upon, I will bring you live and you can do this and come on our stream. So if that's something any of you are interested in, please take advantage of that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. See, I mean, we're fun guys. Maybe that woman who's asking if you were single and said you were cute, maybe we can get her back here. If you're still watching, please, like, I beg you to come on to this stream, please. I want a GMAT club wedding. I will pay two of you to dates. That way I can have my GMAT club wedding. I need this to happen more than anything. But back to this regularly scheduled programming. So you have now picked up a couple more resources. The way you approach questions is changing, but not because you're studying differently. It's because you're using better resources or different resources. How are you thinking about the approach to the anxiety? And how are you trying to prepare for the worst case scenario of going through something like that?
Two things. There's something called mindfulness meditation that I had no idea about before I was introduced to it. In a very, very simplistic manner, and I'm not a neurobiologist, I'm not a therapist, so please don't hold me against what I'm saying. But in a very simplistic sense, mindfulness is just having the realization of your surrounding and your current state of mind. That's pretty much it. How it helped me tackle anxiety was a very scientific approach to how mindfulness meditation works. Because when your mind is relaxed and it's focusing on a few things beyond just what is causing you anxiety, your heart rate will automatically start slowing down. Add to that something called a physiological sign. Now, I follow Dr. Andrew Huberman. He is a very well-known neurobiologist, and he speaks a lot about how to increase productivity and efficiency. And he also talks about human physiology and how do you tackle difficult situations, one of them being stress. So he has a very simple technique, which I used. It's called a double inhale exhale. Now, again, I might be screwing some aspects of it, so please don't hold it against me.
No,
But
sue him. He's a lawyer.
So yeah, I mean, I'll definitely post a link to his podcast. It's very, very informative for people to realize how to deal or cope with anxiety. So another thing that I did was this breathing exercise where you take a double inhale, like, and then have a deeper exhale. And the science behind it is because more carbon dioxide is let out from your lungs, your mind is automatically, now I don't want to go into the reasons how it does it, but your heart rate does slow down. Couple that with something called a very simple grounding technique. It's called 5-4-3-2-1. Whenever you're in a state of anxiety or you feel stress, look for 5 things that you can individually identify, see, 4 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And that can be literally anything around you at that point of time. What, again, I don't want to go into the science of how it happens, but when you combine all of these aspects together, you see automatically that your anxiety towards the situation is reduced and you become a little bit more calm. How I practiced all of this is whenever I used to wake up, I just put on YouTube and put on a session for 10 minutes, mindfulness meditation session. There are hundreds of them available. You can obviously use Calm or Headspace, wonderful apps.
You didn't
And
turn
I
on one
did
of my
that in the morning.
videos?
Sorry?
You didn't turn on one of my videos?
If only those were titled as mindfulness meditation, I would have definitely hit them up.
You're telling me they're not calming? Come on.
Oh,
By the
so
way,
sorry,
for
Evan.
the person asking,
Yeah.
can you repeat the 5 things? Just rewind the video. Just rewind.
I'll share all the links as I can, just so that everyone also has these resources. So yeah, morning, have a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, which just calms you down and prepares you for the day. And in the afternoon, when you're slightly tired out mentally, you have something called another mindfulness meditation plus a visualization technique. Every afternoon when I took a nap or every night before I went to sleep, I could visualize the blue screen showing a 770 or a 760. I think I focused on 770 throughout. Every night it used to be, I'm picturing what that blue screen says. And it might sound woo-woo to a lot of people, but I do believe that when you visualize something, your mind automatically tries to make you work towards it. And I felt more confident when I started giving my tests. And the way I found myself becoming better is when I started doing the GMAT Club Quant Cats and scoring 45 plus. And if anyone has done the GMAT Club Quant Cats and scoring 45 plus, and I got them regularly, my trajectory was 35, 36, 37, and then 45, 47, 49. I touched
That is a
50
very
once,
good
and
sign.
I felt the happiest. I literally shrieked with joy when it came out as 50. Also, another good thing, I was happier with that Quant 50 there than my entire GMAT score. I'll be very honest.
Where are you calling from? Where I forgot to ask. What part of India?
New Delhi.
Well, so if anyone in New Delhi had their dog or cat go deaf because of a high-pitched screech that came about over the last 6 or 9 months, again, please forward all lawsuits and inquiries to this man right here.
So, and the most important thing, my timing was on track. I was finding that I was finishing questions on time and I was allowing myself to let go of very difficult questions. And I realized that I started scoring better because of it, because I wasn't screwing up the easy questions. So I realized that that's also a very important thing, which I realized late. But please realize you are never going to get, unless you're Bunwell or GMAT Ninja, you will not get all your questions correct. You just will not get all your questions correct. So prepare for that yes, there will be some questions that will stump you. Be okay with letting them go, because you will get some questions that you get right. Just try and do the best you can without thinking too much about one question. And that really helped me, because that's how I started focusing on, okay, this is what I can do and this is what I have done. Don't bother about it too much. And my score started going up.
If I may add on to that, folks, the test punishes pretty hard if you get easy and medium questions wrong. It rewards minimally those who get hard questions right, but again, get those two formal ones wrong. Focus on the easy and medium ones, get them right. It's not the end of the world if you get a few hard ones wrong, or even the majority of the hard ones wrong. You're still going to be around a 700 if you're proficient in the other areas. And for the record, I mean, Aditya, between you and me, buddy, and nobody else, just between two of us, GMAT Ninja doesn't get every question right. He really doesn't.
It sort of seemed like it. I mean, his 24-hour marathon was inspirational, to say the least. A man
Incredible
doing
guy,
that for
and he did a
24 hours.
great job.
Incredible. And he got all of Bunuel's difficult question on the 24th hour right. I think all of them right. Yeah.
I think I tripped up on one of them. Didn't he?
Maybe. I'm not too sure. Maybe you're right.
But actually, thank you so much for reminding me. So, folks, in the similar light to what we did with that 24-hour marathon for Ukraine, one of our he's not a moderator. He works with me on the executive team. He's one of our directors. He's from Pakistan, and Pakistan's been flooded, and they've had a lot of people die, and they're short on food and supplies. He is doing a fundraiser for Pakistan. I know that can be a hot topic. I know a lot of people watching this are Indian. I know India and Pakistan don't get along. We're all humans. We're all friends, or at least we try to be. So if you can help in any way, I just posted the link. You get free GMAT Club tests. I forget how long that is. If you donate, the details will be in there. So please, if you can, similar to the thoughts with Ukraine, try and help out if you can. But Aditya, so please continue.
Yeah. So I think mindfulness meditation done, some grounding techniques, visualization, breathing techniques, got my power score Bibles, got Kaplan, figured out GMAT quant, how to give the quant cats. And then I felt, okay, I think I'm ready. Oh yeah, one more thing. Sorry, I completely forgot. I also got the Manhattan Advanced Quant book, which was again not for the questions, but some of the approaches, some of them, not all of them, but some of the approaches to difficult questions or questions that might trip you up, they're quite interesting. More so, I mean, not as much as how you might have to use them in the actual exam, but just some of the approaches were very intuitive. They were not the straightforward, like you start hacking at the question from scratch. So if someone really wants to aim for an elite score like a 50-51, that's not a bad place to look at different techniques to solving some of the questions. So that was sort of nice, and I sort of felt that yes, it's good to have that in your arsenal. So yes, that's pretty much what I practiced from May end till August before my second exam.
By the way, you bunch of cowards! Somebody click on the link. Join us. Come on. I challenge one of you to actually join us. Come on. It's not that big of a deal. You get to become famous for a minute. Come on. We have 80,000 subscribers. Don't you want 80,000 people to see your face at some point? Do it. But anyway, so while we're waiting for people to join, you've now studied for 2.5 months. You've changed up your not study habits, but your materials. You go into test day. You've practiced test anxiety management. You're feeling good. You're feeling confident. Did you have any residual effects when you first sat down where you're like, oh no, the stress is coming up. Is the pen going to work? Or were you just, I feel good and confident so I can blaze through this?
All confident till the first question came up. Tripped up for about 10 seconds. But then all the training. but all the training, all the concepts that I had practiced, everything came back to me instantly. And I started grounding myself, breathing, reading, wasn't tripped up at all. I started with quant because I knew that, let's focus verbal later. Let's shift things up. So earlier it was verbal quant. Now I was like, let's get through quant because I'm still very comfortable with verbal. Let's tackle quant first. So I did that. Felt relatively confident, but towards the end, I realized I knew I made a calculation error the moment I clicked next. And I felt a little upset because that was, I think, the second last question. And then the last question also, because of that second last question getting incorrect, I was a little dejected by it. So I think I also messed up the last question. But beyond those last two questions, I think I felt comfortable with it at that time. Verbal was a breeze, like I said, because of the conceptual understanding and clarity I had with Power Score. I just felt very comfortable with verbal. Yes, there were definitely a few questions, especially in SCU, where I was constantly confused between one and two, and that's where the whole meaning, where you have to look at the meaning of the sentence instead of just looking at the grammatical rules, so to speak, although there aren't such rules. I think I probably messed up one, which I can recollect, but I felt relatively confident with it. And then IR and EWA were a breeze because there's this very popular post on GMAT Club on how to score a 6.0 AWA. I think it's probably one of the most liked or most bookmarked posts. Fantastic. Very easy to get a 6 on AWA if you just follow those guidelines. I mean, there's nothing more you need to do for that.
That's called yeah, I'll you know what, I'll try and find it right now. It's by a user called Chinese Burned, which don't know why that's the name, but I will try and find it on GMAT Club. It is the single most liked post on GMAT Club, to say the least. So if you want to get a 6 on AWA, and by the way, don't skip AWA and IR, they're important. Make sure to study this. And I think I found the PDF version. Sure, why not? I'll post this. If it's not right and you guys get a virus, you can sue the lawyer.
I think I'm going to get a lot of lawsuits after the end of this.
Can't wait. Love them all. And I will not be the one defending you, I promise. I'll be the one suing.
Hey, you're... Sure, why not? Would be fun. Would be fun to be in court. Or I think we can do an out-of-court settlement. What do you think?
Oh, yes, I found it. Yes. I found it. I'm so happy. There we go. Here's Chinese Burns AWA. Every one of our users uses it, so I would recommend that anyone who's struggling do that too. Okay, so you went through. The score pops up on the screen. What was it?
740. It was a Q48.
Slightly below that 760.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I would be lying if I said I was a little unhappy, but that's the overachiever in me who always wants more. It took me some time to realize that, okay, I mean, this is pretty good. Like, don't beat yourself up about it. But it took me a few days to realize that. But yeah, once that 740 came, at least I heaved a sigh of relief and I accepted the score because I had canceled 700. So I accepted it, was relatively fine with what had happened. Not extremely pleased with quant, but extremely happy with verbal. And I felt that, yes, that I think I did pretty well on verbal. So yeah, I think after that point, I heaved a huge sigh of relief. And I felt that, okay, now is the time to just take a step back and now start thinking of what to do next.
So one of our users actually did call in. VJ, I see you, buddy. I'm so happy. I have to ask Aditya one last question, and then you'll be the first on here. Sound good? Well, I can't see you, but I'm going to assume you're okay with that. See, folks, this is what happens. You actually get to come on. Aditya, last question is, what extracurriculars kept you sane? So you're working, you're studying, your head off. What were you able to do to keep yourself sort of not falling apart?
Working out. For me, working out has been... I don't do a lot of heavy lifting.
Show me how much.
I mean, yeah, you're more jacked. You're more jacked than I am. I ain't that jacked. You're more jacked. So
running,
I do a lot of
stuff like that.
It's mostly resistance training. Some running, some jogging. I don't push myself too much on the athletic side, but I just try to keep my body in a shape that I'm able to withstand the pressures and the stress of the kind of work that I've had for the last 8 years and the kind of stuff that I'm going to plan on doing for the next whatever 10, 15 years. It's just about keeping this body in a shape where it is able to withstand all of these pressures. So did a lot of working out. Did not let go of my social life to the extent that I've seen other people do. I still went out. I still had a good time. Yes, some friends of mine kept on saying that you come on a Saturday evening just to say that I have to give a mock on a Sunday morning. But that's pretty much how I used to do things. But I never gave up completely on having a social life, because it sort of made you realize that there are things beyond just studying for the GMAT, and it's very important that you take care of all of these things.
I agree. And by the way, folks, those of you who are wondering, exercise is the singularly most important thing you can do, or helpful thing you can do, to deal with stress. When you're stressed out, if you exercise, that's clinically proven to be the best thing you can do. By the way, the jacked one isn't getting asked if he's single. Something's wrong here. But all right, VJ, I am bringing you onto the stream. I am going to ask you to unmute, and by all means, ask your question.
Hi, Evan. Hi, Aditya.
We can hear you.
Hi, Vijay.
Yeah, so I just joined to let people know that I did score a 742 recently. It was my third attempt. So initially a 650, then a 700, and then a 740. So yeah, what Aditya said about being mindful in the exam was what helped me score from 700 to 740. Initially, like the 650 that I achieved was way back into 2019, initially when I started preparing for GMAT. So I just went through the two books that GMAT officially releases, one for this advanced level and one for the normal one. Then I just went for this official mocks. I got somewhere between 700 to 730, and I thought, hey, yeah, it's very simple. I'll just go with the exam. And after the exam, yeah, it showed when it published 650. I didn't understand what was happening. So yeah, that was at that point of time. I just had around 2 years of experience. So I thought, anyways, most schools have 4+ years of experience, so I have time. So, and the second attempt that I gave was around July 30th, so around 2 months ago. So I was done with my preparation from EGMAT, and I was fairly confident with that. And since I just wanted to apply this year, I'm done with my. I didn't want to push this MBA journey to one more year, so I wanted to apply in this round one itself. So I gave it in July so that I'll have some more time to apply again in case my score wasn't good. So I just got 700. So it was okay, and I decided to go with this 700 just in case my score doesn't improve. So I was mentally prepared to apply with that 700 score itself. I think that is one of the reasons that helped me to not stress out a lot during the exam, during this third attempt. And I solved especially the English and IA sections more like some kind of puzzle solving fun thing that we do, right? I took it like that instead of a real exam, and that helped me alleviate my stress. And I think I strongly believe that those were the things that led me to the 740. So
VJ, thank
everybody
you.
who's targeting those kind of scores, that is what I would say. So don't overthink your abilities. Your ability forms your gut feeling that forms purely based out of your experiences. So trust your instincts.
VJ, thank you so much for coming on to share your experience. We appreciate it, and we take every word you said to heart, because I think what you said will resonate with a lot of people. So thank you very much. I'm going to remove you from the stream now, and you can either remove yourself from the studio, or I can remove you there as well. And if anyone else would like to come on, see, that wasn't so bad. You can do that. But now we're going to hop into the questions that you people asked. The first one talks about time preparation. You could spend a day studying for this thing. You could take 5 years studying. So, it is what it is. Somebody asked about how they can overcome anxiety. We sort of talked about that, but anxiety is so independent. You could try 50 different things. Some people are going to need medication. Some just need to meditate. Some do what Aditya did, which is positive thinking and deep breathing. So again, we can't really answer that to a certain extent, but And by the way, folks, like neither Aditya nor I are consultants, so asking like, oh, what would you recommend we do this or if we do that, we can't really answer that, unfortunately. Like somebody asked, I gave a mock and I scored a 700. My score 730. I have a month to study. What do you suggest? We can't really give an answer to that. I would say go back, make sure you have your fundamentals down, and try and figure out where the gaps in your knowledge are, because that's the only way you're going to do it. I will go back to Anupriya. He seems cute. Is he single? The answer is yes. And Anupriya, please come on this stream. I beg you. Please, 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 please. I mean, Taha asked how meditation helped you. Did you do meditation at all?
Yes. So
did it help?
In the morning, yeah, it did.
And actually, a similar question, what role did meditation and yoga play in your journey?
Right. So I think I tried yoga for a bit. I think for me, resistance training works better because I like to be pushed. I like to feel that my body has worked hard. And I'm not saying that yoga doesn't get you to do that. I'm just more comfortable in working with weights consistently. So I tried yoga. Probably didn't work as well as it does for some other people. It might work for you. Like Evan said, there's no one size fits all. It depends on what works for you. And for me, what works is resistance training. But in the same breath, feel free to try out different things because you never know what might work for you. So in terms of what worked for me when it comes to meditation, early morning, I would wake up and I'll do 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation. It's just a guided meditation that focuses you on what you're thinking about, how you're breathing, breaths in, breaths out. That's it. Mindfulness is nothing, just being aware of who you are and where you are in that present moment. And that's pretty much it. That's all the meditation that I did. And it's not for more than 10 minutes. Some people have the ability to do it for more than that. After 10 minutes, for me, my mind starts racing away. And the beauty of mindfulness meditation is you don't have to control your mind. You just let it go. You just have to be aware of what you're doing at that time. And after some practice, you just get comfortable with who you are and comfortable with silence or just with some very light music. But I recommend silence. It works for me. And yes, it helps you. It doesn't directly help you in the exam, but it does help you realize when you're feeling that anxiety or feeling that pressure, because mindfulness allows you to focus on what you're going through at that time. So when you know that you're feeling anxiety, then you tack into, okay, I'm feeling this. I know I'm feeling this. Let's go into the solution. What can I do? And that's where the grounding technique comes in. That's where the breathing technique comes in. So that's how I connected what I did to help me get through all these anxieties during the exam and make sure that I don't repeat the mistakes.
Very nice. Taha asks at Evan and Aditya, at the end of each section, my mental stamina goes down. How can I overcome this problem? Boy, don't we all have stamina problems? I mean, I can give my 2 cents while you're thinking about it, which is you need to practice more questions and you need to take more mocks that are in a real test setting. You need to push your mind to get into the habit of being strained. The other thing you can consider is if you're dead at the end of each section, I believe at the test centers, they let you bring in food. Like bring in something that's going to feed your mind to sort of rebalance yourself. Bring in something that's either high in sugar or high in calories or whatever the brain eats. I don't know what the brain eats. Maybe the brain eats other brains. I don't really know. But I'm not a nutritionist. Figure out what that is and what your body needs and take it after the first section, and hopefully that'll give you a boost. Aditya, what are your thoughts?
Likewise, I completely agree with you. The way to increase stamina is just by pushing yourself a bit more by practicing. And that worked for me because I did a lot of questions in actual exam settings with the mask. And with the mask, your breathing also has to change. Not taking a break, not pausing your exam. I think that's extremely critical. If you're giving an exam, do not pause the exam in between, especially one of these mocks. Get into the habit of of continuing the process, even if it's feeling stressful. And very rightly said, after each session, I mean, what worked for me was a small chocolate bar and some almonds. Almonds are very
Mm,
good fats, good calories, and chocolate bar just because you need that sugar boost. So
Hershey's and almonds. Mhm.
it really works. It really works because it gives you that instant boost, and it also preps your mind. Okay, you have the energy. You're not going to suffer for the next part of the exam. So yeah, definitely exactly what you said, Evan.
Okay, I want Hershey's to start sponsoring this. I think we just talked
I
up
hope so.
again a couple of their candy bars.
I hope so. I ate Snickers though. Snickers worked for me.
Snickers works too. Snickers satisfies.
Yes.
See, but that's Mars and Mars. Okay,
That's-
so if Mars and Mars or Hershey's, if one of you two rivals want to sponsor us, reach out to me. We can. I will paint this entire thing brown. I'll have my entire background be a giant chocolate candy bar if we need to. So yes, it is agenda free, but I will sell out to non-GMAT related sponsors. So let's. There is a price here that I'm willing to sell out for, but I had to ask. My score is Q51 V32, which is awesome. What should my strategy be to take it from 32 to 40? If you're, I would agree, practicing 700 plus questions is the way to do it. And just making sure you understand that if your fundamentals are solid, it's about understanding then the tricks and the pitfalls thereafter once you get to those more difficult questions. So if your fundamentals are solid, it's just about repetition and reviewing and understanding where they're trying to make you, see an obvious answer when it's not the right one. That's what I would recommend. I don't know. Aditya, any thoughts as well?
No, precisely. I think when you're scoring Q51 V32, that means you do have the capacity for a high score. That shows that you have the capacity. I think one way I would think about it is if I can at least figure out, is there something specifically that's tripping me up? Is there a specific CR type? Is there a specific RC type? Is it SC? Because Q51 V32 means that you're right there. You just need to focus on the specific aspects, not as a general. So I would look at what I'm doing incorrectly and try and focus specifically on that. And yes, definitely practicing 700 plus questions will definitely help. But just first make sure which aspect is making your score not a V35 plus or a V40 plus, because I think that capacity clearly is evident.
Also, reviewing my critical reasoning and reading comprehension guides.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
Too. Because you want to think like an expert. So read GMAT Ninja, read his SC explanations, read Generis, his or her explanations. Actually, I don't know if that is a guy or a girl. I need to stop saying pronouns because it could be a guy or a gal, and I feel like I'm going to piss somebody off one day. Read their explanations, and then because the point is to think like an expert. So if you think like them and you can understand how they think, you're golden. Puja or Puha? Again, sue me. I have my lawyer here anyways. Any tips and tricks on how the AC exam?
Wow.
I mean, know your fundamentals would be my recommendation. What about you?
Ensure that you have a focused and structured approach to the exam. I would say have a structure in place. Don't just do what I did in the beginning. Just structure it. Have a focused approach to it where you're first looking at concepts, being fundamentally sound, then topping all that with some additional questions, and then layering it all off with critical practice in test sessions or in test conditions. I think that's pretty much the way I did it, and it sort of works.
Also, GMAT Club tends to help.
Absolutely.
So we are all out of questions, or at least ones that I think we've touched on. Aditya, now that we're wrapping up, is there anything we didn't hit on that you would like our audience to know? Is there anything off top of your head that you wish we had hit on? The floor is yours before we wrap this thing up.
No, I think we covered everything. And if anyone has a takeaway from this, it's this. This is a tough exam, but it is definitely tameable. It is not something that's impossible. Anyone who has an approach that is structured and systematic can actually get a very, very, very high score. It is not impossible at all. So don't get disheartened by low scores if you get it. It is not impossible. yes, this test is intended to, not show you the perfect results, but it is definitely achievable.
And to add on to that, this is not an IQ test. Now you do need to have some intelligence. You need to understand how things work together, but you can study for that. One of my moderators, who is a friend of mine now, he took a couple of years to study for this test, ladies and gentlemen. This is a moderator of GMAT Club who had a lot of support. He took a couple of years, and he finally got his score and is now at Booth. He's at U Chicago. If this is your dream, don't let anything stand in your way. If business school is what you want to attend, this test is what is going to stand in your way, and you have to get through it. And the only way to get through it is to study hard and sacrifice. But if it's your dream, it's worth it, and anybody can do it, I assure you. So, we do have one last question. This from, why can't I get John Adams? Is it Nithya or Nithya? How many mocks did you take?
Okay, quite a lot, but not for the exam questions, but for the exam setup and the conditions, the test conditions. I gave the 2 GMAT preps. I gave 6 GMAT Whiz mocks. I gave the free Manhattan mock. So that's 6 plus 2, 8 plus 1, 9. Then I gave 6 Kaplan mocks. That's 9 plus 6, 15. And then I did about 21 quant cats from GMAT Club.
Okay, 36 would be an extreme in my amount.
That's extreme. It is extreme. Absolutely.
I've always been a proponent of, if you want to take maybe one a week or one every other week, just to continue to see where you stand, that's fine. But doing 36 is, wow, that's a lot. And in the same view, by the way, Nithya, I don't know. This is why we have people come on, so I don't screw up their names. Loving the green top. That thing just works. Aquamarine is such an amazing color. Taha, no, you do not take a mock exam every day. You will literally kill your stamina doing that. The only way to do it, I would say, if your exam is in 10 days, I would take one and really prepare for it, and give yourself 3 or 4 days to rest after that. Maybe give yourself a week to rest after that. If you don't get the score you want, I would then space it out to once a week or once every 2 weeks, and just get yourself in the mindset of, around this time I'm taking the exam, I'm going to be put in this situation, so I have to commit this time. That's the only way. An exam every day, no, you are going to shoot yourself in the foot. Again, so another question, what's the average prep time with full-time working? Karan, there's no way to answer that. Everyone studies differently. I've had friends who've studied for 2 days and they've gotten to 750. I've had friends who've studied for 5 years and gotten to 720. It varies. It really does. So folks, this is not a one-size-fits-all exam. It has a lot of unique facets to it because you're a unique person. We're all different. Some of us have soul, some of us don't. And therefore it plays differently. But seeing as we're out of questions and we've now at an hour and a half and we are way over time, to our audience, thank you so much for being here. You were terrific. We had good participation throughout, and I'm really, really, really happy about that. Please join me when I do these again. It may be next week, it may be next month, it may be next year. Make sure to say in our comments how much you either loved or hated this. That way we should know how many of these to do in the future and whether we should continue them or not. But Aditya, it was a pleasure. You were awesome, man. Is there any way folks can reach out to you?
Sure. I'm now relatively active on GMAT Club, or if anyone wants to hit me up, I'll leave my LinkedIn profile ID with you or somewhere on my GMAT Club profile, so that anyone who wants to reach out for me for questions. Name? It's ADI1726.
There we go. ADI. Wait, 7-1 or 1? Dang it.
17.
Use this one. Sorry.
Yes.
Use this one. 1726. Yes, I know. I screwed up. Bite me. I'm not perfect. I'm not infallible, as we have just seen. But folks, you can reach out to him there. To again, everyone for watching, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody.